Sickle cell disease affects more than 100,000 people in the U.S. It's a genetic blood disorder that causes chronic, sometimes debilitating pain and makes it hard for blood to carry oxygen throughout the body.
September is National Sickle Cell Disease Awareness Month. This morning, we're joined by Dr. Teresa Ginger Davis, president of the Sickle Cell Disease and Thalassemia Patients Network. So good morning to you once again. Good to see you.
Good morning again.
And
Good morning, Hazel. Good morning.
A refresher on maybe those who don't know what life is like living with sickle cell.
It can be difficult, even among siblings who have the same disorder. One person can be less impacted than the other. But what the daily life is like, it could be constant pain. Mm-hmm. It could be low level. Sometimes it could be intense. Other people don't really have pain at all. But because of the nature of the disease and not having enough blood in your body, or your bone marrow producing enough blood, what happens very quietly, damage is happening inside the body because your organs and your tissues are not getting enough oxygen. Yeah. And so even without pain, damage is still happening. And as you get older, it starts to present itself. And then that might be when the pain happens. And you have people who have never had what's known as a vaso-occlusive crisis or a sickle cell crisis, and they have that one crisis that even makes them critically ill or kills them.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So it's a very complex disease because it is the blood. It affects every organ system in your body. But the number one symptom for this disease is severe pain.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's awful. And it's prevalent in African American communities. First of all, why is that? And is there anything that families can do to get ahead of it, with knowing more about the sickle cell?
Here in this country, they make it an African American disease. It's actually prevalent worldwide. Okay. So Mediterranean, India is the second largest population outside of Africa. Asia, China, Southeast Asia has it, Central and South America. So it started as an autoimmune response to malaria over centuries. And what it did was replace the sequence of two proteins in our DNA. Yeah. And that switch, they call a single gene mutation, is what caused sickle cell disease over centuries as a way to protect the body from the devastation of malaria. Okay. And so everywhere that malaria exists in the world, sickle cell, a version of sickle cell trait, because there's more than one, there's like 22 traits associated with this order that can be inherited in any combination. And, and everywhere in the world where sickle cell trait exists, those people are here, particularly in New York, city and state. And so, if you look, you'll see 100,000 people are affected. We're way over 100,000 people. And I surmise that the reason that number is kept there is so that sickle cell will remain an official rare disease. Okay. And what happens with that is you get the special dispensation of research, fast-tracking research for disease-modifying medications, disease-modifying and curative therapies. And however, we know that everybody is not being taken care of because they're not being counted.
Yeah. Can we talk about the progress that's been made with walks like the one that's happening this weekend, right, where it's to raise awareness, raise money for research. Autoimmune you will have for your life, but there's ways to manage and cope. We talked to Parker, Nicole Johnson, our colleague's son. He's now becoming an adult and really managing some of these crises. So can you talk about the evolution of treating it?
It has taken over 100 years for research to happen in the way that it's happening now, but there is like a burst of research. Most of it is on different ways to raise the hemoglobin, to get the bone marrow to produce more red blood cells and healthier red blood cells. So we have medications that are in clinical trials. We have some that have been approved since 2017, specifically for sickle cell. We have drugs that are being repurposed, and then we have the two approved, the cell and gene therapies, right, which are disease modifying, and one cuts out that improper sequence and places in the proper sequence so that, it cuts out the switch that turns off fetal hemoglobin, which is the blood that babies produce. Yes. And that's like a buffer. So that's the gene therapy, and then the cell therapy actually introduces the production of a hemoglobin, which is also protective
Well, it's amazing the advances that have been done, and it's these types of walks that can fund more research to help make the cure happen.
We don't actually fund research. We provide direct services to families and communities, right? So whatever, we have a scholarship fund. Undergraduate, we're raising funds to start a graduate scholarship because our young folks are dynamic and want to continue their education. We also do public education, so we try to fund that as much as we can rather than to rely on other sources. And you know, just kind of helping families to get to some of the conferences and the workshops and things that we go to, so we can educate more people in the community to become spokespersons.
Right. Wonderful. Thanks so much for coming in.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate your time
every year.
And remember that the walk, the Sickle Cell and Thalassemia Education and Awareness Walk, takes place Saturday at 9 a.m. at Central Park West and 72nd Street. Go to SCTPNWalk.net for more information.